Welcome, Tyler. Can you hear me okay?
All good.
All right. Would you like to open with an opening statement, or should we throw it out to some questions?
Sure. I'll just hit a couple items and we'll open up for questions for everybody. First and foremost, thanks everybody for being out here. Kind of wish it was in person. I enjoy it in person more than via Zoom. A little zoomed out over the last 2.5 years here. But, it's excited the way we finished today. I think our staff did a good job. Obviously probably didn't get off to the start we were really hoping for in June. And really through the summer, I think there were a few things that, kind of played into that. His coach had mentioned a little bit. When you go back just to last year's class, we had a good majority of that class on campus before that COVID dead period hit. So we were able to kind of get some momentum there and get the good bulk of our class done. And when you fast forward to this class, I think we only had 3 guys that we signed today that had made it to campus before that COVID dead period hit. Aaron Graves, Xavier, Nwankpa, Jaden Montgomery. The rest of the other 14 guys never got to campus until at the very earliest June of this year. So, when we got guys on campus, we obviously we knew we were going to have a small class. We wanted to be a little bit pickier than we probably have been in years past. But the biggest thing is, I think our staff did a really good job. We stayed on some of those guys that didn't commit to us in June. A couple guys that went elsewhere and ended up signing with us today. And as Coach Ferentz always mentioned, he's been in this for a long time. He's incredibly wise. It's not a sprint; it's a marathon, right? You got to be patient. And I think our staff did a good job just being patient. Seeing some guys in their senior film in high school, sticking with some of those guys that were here in June that did not commit to us at the time, and then ultimately, I can't say enough about what our staff did just to finish. I think we're very pleased with how things turned out today. The guys that we were able to add into this class and. Like Coach said, we're not done yet. There will be a few spots, and we'll kind of get into January and February. We'll see what's out there, both high school-wise and portal-wise, and then we'll keep adding to this class. And I can't give you the definitive number. That's pretty fluid. We still have some guys here on the roster that are probably making some decisions, and we'll have a better picture, I think, once we get through our bowl game, just to have an idea of really what the remaining needs are for this 22 class. So with that being said, I'll open up for questions for you guys.
Thank you, Tyler. The first question this afternoon is from John Schaefer.
Tyler, when you land a recruit like Xavier, what does that do for the rest of the week for you in trying to land some of those guys that maybe haven't committed yet?
Yeah, it's that was an interesting recruitment. If you go back to April, May, even June. I think if anybody in our staff told you that we felt good about that recruitment, they're lying to you. I think we were probably definitely on the outside looking in. We were able to get him here unofficially in the summer, which was huge. But for us, it's there is a difference even on an in-state kid coming unofficially to officially. So getting him here in June was huge, and I think. Me personally, I really felt it started to turn a little bit in August. He was down here for an open practice. He was back here for our Indiana game. Probably when I got most confident and excited about everything. He went to the Iowa State game with his father. They bought their own tickets. His dad was an All-American sprinter at Iowa State. Xavier was extremely brave and wore an Iowa shirt to that game. So for me right there, I was like, okay, we've got to be making up some headway here. And after the Indiana game, he talked about setting up an official visit for Penn State. So I knew we were kind of, we were creeping back into the picture probably a little bit more than people had realized. But you never want to get, too excited about a recruit, especially someone in the caliber of Xavier, just the status he's had in the state and around the country. So, fast forward to it, I felt pretty good about a month and a half, 2 months out. There were obviously some bumps in the road there, and Xavier would be an incredible poker player because he doesn't give away anything, no tips to anybody, as well as his mom. But once we kind of got into it, me personally, I was really nervous when Notre Dame hired Marcus Freeman. I know they were really close. I thought we were right there at the finish line, and the crazy coaching changes take place. So he did commit to our staff on Monday night when they did an in-home visit, and our staff and Xavier and his parents are evil people. They told him not to tell me about it, so they made me sweat it out for 48 more hours. I got tipped off on Wednesday by a couple people that made me feel good, but until he actually said that he was coming, you just never know. Recruiting is a wild and crazy world, and a guy like that, and it's what I had kind of preached to him and his mom the whole way through is, I understand, you've got this decision day in mind, and that's great, and we're going to wait for you, but, the momentum he can create and just the power and the pull he has with other peers, we can be the best recruiters in the country, but guys want to play, dudes want to play with dudes, right? And when you have a guy like that who's got the reputation he has and the pull he has with kids, you can't replace that. You can't buy that in recruiting. And that's huge. And there's no doubt he certainly had a part in helping us close out this class. There's no doubt about it. So selfishly, it would have been nice to have him in the boat a little bit earlier, but it is what it is. But as a recruiting guy, that's always a big win when you can beat some of the those blue blood programs that people talk about, and especially you keep a kid like that home. That's huge, no matter how you look at it, and we're extremely excited about him.
Tyler, the next question is from David Eichholt.
Hey, Tyler, hope you're doing well. Appreciate you taking the time to talk with us. Cohen's sort of an interesting case to me because he was a soccer player mostly growing up. He didn't even play defense until this year. And I think back to when you told us, I think, earlier in the year that it was kind of nice for you to be able to evaluate senior tape this year as opposed to last year. What really stuck out about Cohen, and just sort of how did he come on your radar, and just sort of how did you end up securing his commitment, because he was a very, very high riser late in the process?
Yeah, so Cohen was committed to Central Michigan, and I actually had saw Colorado offer him. It may have been about 6 weeks ago now, and we have somebody in our office. Anybody in a 6 or 7 hour radius, any Division I offer they get, we put together a list every single day, and that's handed out just so we can stay on top, making sure we're not missing any of those guys. And I saw Cohen's name there, and I pop on his phone, and within 6 clips, I had texted Phil, and I was like, "Hey, you need to get down there and watch this kid. I mean, this kid's a little bit different." And we were recruiting his teammate who signed with Wisconsin today, actually about the same time. We had just offered his linebacker teammate Aiden Vaughn. And it's funny because you got Aiden was the same way. Aiden was a guy that had was committed to Air Force, didn't have many offers, really blew up in his senior year, ended up signing with Wisconsin ultimately today. But Cohen's on the same team right behind him making plays. And with that, just reach out to the kid, got a little bit more background on him, obviously talked to his high school coach, and the more we learned about Cohen and the more we talked to him, the more we really fell in love with the kid. And it's, he's an incredible kid and incredibly smart. He's got a chip on his shoulder. He actually, he attempted to play football his first or second year at his high school in Arizona. And his high school coach told him he wasn't good enough and that he wasn't going to be able to play there. Fast forward, he moves to Michigan. He goes to a school in Ann Arbor. They play him at receiver there. He doesn't do a whole lot, and then he finishes at Walled Lake Western, where the coach, kind of saw his skill set and was like, "We're going to play you on both sides." And this is what he does on film. He's a big kid. He's all of 6'2", 205 pounds. He runs like the wind. He's got great ball skills. Really smart for a second-year football player, a football junkie. And then when you're around him, he's just got an infectious personality. He's a guy you really want to be around. You really like, and for some reason, Phil, the way we recruit, I think Phil tried to talk him out of coming here just to see if he was really a fit and what we were looking for. And the kid had a really good relationship with Phil, a really good bond with him, and really had a good bond with the other DBs that were here, including Xavier. So it is good. You never know when you get to watch senior film, you get to see how guys develop. It could be a first-year football player. It could be a guy that was under-recruited or under the radar for some reason. But, Cohen's a great example, and we're certainly excited to have him in the fold.
Tyler, the next question from Tom Kakert.
Hey, Tyler. Good to talk to you. Wanted to ask you about Carson May and the process of finding a quarterback in this class, because that's always an interesting journey, and flipping Caleb Johnson. I know you guys were in on him early, and then he commits to Cal, and then you get him back, and how that process played out.
Yeah, Carson was a guy that kind of popped on my radar just based on what he did in his junior year. He was putting up kind of PlayStation numbers down in Oklahoma, and a guy that really didn't have a whole lot going on, had a couple of smaller school offers. And a guy we were talking to, as the COVID dead period was coming to an end, got him up here to camp, did a really good job. Had offered a couple other quarterbacks, before we'd offered him. So we kind of gave them, their time to see what they were going to do. And ultimately they went in a different direction. And, Coach O just really liked his time working with Carson on camp here. He had, awesome family, really nice parents, good people, big kid, all of a little bit over 6'4", 220 pounds, really looks like a tight end right now. Athletic kid, can really throw, can really run, and had a huge senior season this year too. So I think he's severely under-recruited. And I'm not the only one. I've talked to a few recruiting guys around the country when he committed to us that were all, giving us kudos that, this kid's kind of flying under the radar. So excited about Carson. He's a pretty stoic, kind of quiet kid, but he's definitely a gamer, and it's fun to watch his film. And then Caleb, we offered Caleb when Coach Foster was here as our running backs coach early on. And, you can't teach size. Caleb's 6'2", 200, he was 225 pounds this past weekend on campus, and still got a 12-pack and a big kid. And just how fluid he is on film, some of the stuff he does, he's extremely fast. He's really fluid for a big guy. Obviously can run through tackles, run through contact. And it's a good kid. Initially we were supposed to get him here in June. Didn't quite make it out, ended up committing to Cal. Kind of stayed on him. Obviously I think our start to the season helped out in that recruitment there. And we got him back here unofficially for the Penn State game, and at that point it was kind of over. So, we're looking forward to get him here. Again, we haven't had a guy his size in a long time here, so it'll be good to add a little size to that running back room.
The next question, Tyler, is from John Steppe.
Hey, Tyler, how are you?
Good, thank you, John.
So with a good chunk of this recruiting happening over Zoom, how do you pitch kids on Iowa without them actually being on foot on campus?
Yeah, it's, we've got a multitude of videos. Obviously you're going to use Zoom and FaceTime to do facility tours and whatnot. I put together a pretty extensive presentation that we would kind of go over. It's about an hour and 15 minutes with each kid and his family, and certainly we tailor that to where the kid was from and the position he plays, and highlight obviously, any traditions or NFL guys, any success we've had at that position. But as Coach Farron said, it worked at the time, but it doesn't replace getting here, right? It doesn't replace getting around our guys and having player panels and being around our staff and just, having that interaction on a day-to-day basis. But as I've said before, some of that stuff we did on Zoom and those virtual visits we'll continue to use moving forward, just to kind of grab a kid's attention maybe earlier in the recruiting process before they can get here unofficially or officially. So it's something we'll continue to use moving forward. I'm very glad that, we don't have a COVID dead period and we're able to get kids here on campus, because it does make a huge difference. You're just able to showcase so much more, and you're able to have, that interaction, just it can't be replaced by anything you do. But I think our staff did a really good job navigating those waters. Hopefully we don't have to go back to that type of situation anytime soon, but it affected everybody around the country, and various schools did different things. But I think our staff did a pretty good job overall, just handling everything throughout that dead period.
The next question, Tyler, is from Scott Dockerman.
Hey, Tyler, how you doing?
Hey, Scott.
Wanted to ask you, a couple of questions real quick. One is, do you have any early enrollees? I know Xavier's one, but who else? And then two, Caden Crawford was, after Aaron Graves, was the second guy to commit to you, and you're able to keep him. What does he bring to the program?
For sure. Yeah, as of right now, we have 4 guys that will enroll early. That number could grow. There's a couple of guys kind of checking things out with their school, and we're working through that currently. But 3 scholarship guys, so Brian Allen, who just signed with us and committed today, Caden Crawford, who you just mentioned, then Xavier Nwankpa, and then our walk-on kicker Drew Stevens. So they're all set to be here in January. They'll get up and rolling, and then like I said, there may be 1 or 2 more guys after that. We're kind of working through some things, and then Caden's he's kind of your typical. I mean, when you look at some of the guys we've taken in years past here that play defensive line for us, or really anybody, you got to be able to project, right? And Caden never played D-line in high school. He was a high school quarterback and a high school linebacker. Productive is productive as he could be on both sides of the ball. Tough kid, big kid, a little bit over 6'4", 245, 50 pounds right now. He's got a big frame. Comes from an extremely athletic family. Both parents are really good athletes. His sister's a volleyball player right now at Kansas. Had an uncle that played for the Kansas City Chiefs for a long time. So, the bloodlines were there, but just a lot of the same stuff we're looking for really any position we're trying to evaluate. He played with an extremely high motor. He's a tough kid. He's productive. He runs well. And it's going to be a projection on the D-line, but he's got all the tools in place and everything we're looking for. We felt good about him. And he was excited about us out of the gate. He kind of knew what we were about. He knew that we had history and success, projecting kids and kind of developing kids, all across the D-line there. So he was he was the second guy to raise his hand and jump on board, and we're pretty happy that he stuck through everything and excited to get him here in January.
Tyler, the next question is from Mike Halas.
Hi there. Back in the summer, you made a public statement saying the amount of negative recruiting that you'd heard over the last month was laughable. I was wondering, did that carry on all the way through up until today? What are you facing? You've obviously beaten it back, whatever it was.
Yeah, it never stops. It never stops. Obviously, it's our head coach has been here 23 years, the longest tenured head coach in the country. So everybody's going to talk about retirement. I mean, that's the first thing they always attack, and it's laughable. It is what it is. But we try and address whatever's been said. We try and address it with facts and history here, and just show the kids and the parents that this isn't true. Some of the stuff it's not even worth addressing because it's so terrible and just laughable, and most kids and parents understand that. But it's part of how some schools recruit. It is what it is. We don't get into that. We don't want to get into that. Anytime we have to spend negative recruiting against another school is time we're taking away, showcasing and talking about what Iowa football has to offer. So it's not going to go away. It just is what it is, and we're not really too concerned about it. I probably shouldn't have tweeted that, but I think the couple schools that were saying some stuff knew exactly what I was talking about. So, but we'll move on, and we got a couple of those guys, and jokes on them.
Excuse me, Tyler, we have a couple more questions for you, and the first is from Tom Caker.
Well, I wanted to talk about one of the guys that you flipped, Brian Allen, who's coming in early. What was that process like with him? I know you guys had some hurdles that you had to overcome with, Jason Manson being at the school, and what was that process like? Yeah,
it was, unfortunately for us, that just, getting everything cleared through NCAA didn't line up timing-wise like we had hoped, and I think how Brian's family had hoped. And we kind of ran out of time there. But, eventually we got things taken care of, and when he opened things up, we felt good about where we were at in the process with him. And, obviously, and rightfully so, he garnered some more attention and some other offers, but just kind of stuck through it, through the long run, kept swinging away on Brian. And, we're glad he made the decision to be a Hawkeye. We felt pretty good about it the whole way through, but again, you never know, especially when some other schools come calling. But, I think, even after his visit, I think he knew this is where he wanted to be. We just had a couple of hurdles we had to jump with the NCAA, but, we got it taken care of and done, and it's everything's good now, and we're looking forward to getting them here in January.
Next question, Tyler, is from Scott Dockerman.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about Aaron Graves, who's been committed since he was a 15-year-old freshman, and committed very quickly, and you never really had to worry about it. But what jumps out to you about him, and what do you expect from him from day one coming on campus?
Yeah, first of all, that was a really good article you wrote. That was really good. I thought it encapsulated what Aaron's about and his family and just who he is as a person, to a T. But Aaron, I actually wanted to offer Aaron after the first 2 games of his freshman year in high school film. I had to be told to slow it down a little bit by our coaching staff, but I saw all I needed to see, which is easy because he never came off the field in those 2 games as a freshman. And, when you know how big he is, obviously a 6'5", 270 pounds, built like one of those Nike mannequins you see with a 12-pack. It was pretty easy. But then he came to camp, and it was real quick. It took about 10 minutes in camp to know what we had there. And it's funny because, he ended up calling Coach a few days afterwards, and Coach may have told this story, but and I think, Doc, you hit it in your article there, but, Coach Ferentz offered him, and before he get the offer out of his mouth, Aaron just asked, how do I commit? So, well, you just tell us you want to come. And that was that. And we kind of knew we wanted to be a Hawkeye. We didn't think he was going to commit on the spot there. But just, everything about Aaron, right? Incredibly smart kid, 4-sport athlete, dominated on the basketball court and wrestling last year, did both sports for the first time. First time wrestling, finished 4th in the state, which is pretty impressive in the state of Iowa. Obviously, wrestling's pretty good. High school wrestling is pretty good in the state. And just the way he operates, he doesn't have Twitter, and that's his own choice. So he's a little bit of a throwback. That doesn't happen very often with teenagers in this society. But he doesn't stop. He doesn't take a play off. It's high motor. He's all out effort, every single snap, which you just don't see a ton, especially from big guys, But for Aaron, that's just how he plays. That's how he's wired. And he's such a good kid from an awesome family. I mean, he's the epitome of an Iowa Hawkeye, and we're obviously thrilled to get him here. And it's nice to have a guy commit that early, and probably the lowest maintenance recruit in the history of Iowa football. Just he didn't need much, didn't want much. Send him graphics, thanks. Would never post him on anything. Just kind of how he operated.
Final question this afternoon, Tyler, is from Chad Leistico.
Hi, Tyler. Wanted to ask about the transfer portal. It's probably more different than ever this year, maybe fuller than ever. You get the, no restrictions on transfers anymore. How does that change your approach, if at all? I know you've been a little more selective in the past, but curious if that's changed.
Yeah,
as you look in there.
It has. I mean, we keep a board of transfers. We kind of have, we have our high school recruit board from different classes, and then we have a board with transfers. And I've spent more time this year watching film on transfers than I have in my time working in football. And it's interesting because a lot of Power 5 guys, the top tier Power 5 guys, when they hit the portal, like it's already done for the most part. They already know where they're going, right? It's in tampering. I heard the coach said that today. It's 100% true. Most of these deals are done. It is college free agency, but it's not really free agency because there are tampering rules in the NFL and punishments for those. So like I said before, we try and really pay attention to those FCS schools, maybe some MAC schools, some lower level schools where kids are hitting the portal because they know and they think they can play at a higher level. And that's kind of what fills our board up. And we evaluate those guys on film first and foremost to see if, we think they can contribute at this level. And at that point, if we want to recruit those guys, we'll dig into them the same way we do high school recruits. We'll call the coaches on that staff, figure out what's going on, why they're leaving, make sure they're getting, glowing remarks at least. We'll dig into their high school coach and really get to know the kids. So it's changed. Some schools are really going to live in the portal, and that's fine. We're not going to live there. We're not going to sign 10 guys a year out of the portal. If we have definitive needs or immediate needs, absolutely we're going to look in there and we're going to try and identify those guys and help out with those needs. But I still go back to, and I think Coach Ferentz agrees, it's pretty dangerous to build and sustain a team when you're taking 10 to 15 transfers a year because you got to keep replacing those guys. So at some point, there's got to be development of your young guys and your high school kids. And at the end of the day, that's what we're about at Iowa football, and we're going to continue to be about that. But we're certainly, we've probably got a more open eye to the transfer portal than we have in the past, and it's not going anywhere anytime soon. Chad, you're right. I think it's a record number. I think the last 3 months there have been a record number of guys entering the portal. And the sad part is some of these kids are leaving situations that are probably much better for them currently than what's going to be in the future. And that's the hard part is when you see some of these kids that are going to be left without spots. And you wish they'd stay there and stick it out and try and earn their way wherever they're at because, the grass is not always greener. So, and that's the same thing with us too. When we take a transfer kid, it's going to have repercussions on that position room, that unit. So we've got to be incredibly smart and diligent on who we decide to bring in here. And that's the same way we operate with high school recruits. We're going to do exactly the same way with the transfer portal.
All right, Tyler, congratulations on this recruiting class, and we thank you for giving us your time